All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's NCLUG Tech Talk from NCDOT. My name is Jason Johnson, and I'm the current Vice Chairman for NCLUG. Today's webinar is focused on NCDOT Integrated Project Delivery Overview. Derrick Weaver with NCDOT will provide an overview of IPD, review the policy, talk about resources available, plus answer questions you might have about the IPD process. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items so you'll know how to participate in today's event. This will be a presentation, so all attendees will be muted. At any time during the webinar, you'll have the opportunity to submit your questions to today's presenters. To do so, just type your question in the chat box. As time allows, the presenters will address as many questions as they can during the Q&A session and at the end of the presentation. We will be recording this webinar and will share the link after the event. NCLUG is offering PDH credits to those who have registered on the website for this event. If you were forwarded the meeting link, you'll need to make sure you're registered on the nclug.com website. We will keep the event active until 3 p.m. today to make sure you're registered. After this session, NCLUG will send out PDH receipts to those that attended the live meeting. Credit will not be given to those who have not have viewed the recorded presentation. As of this meeting, PDH receipts have been sent out on August 6th Tech Talk. Last week's events will be sent soon. If you did not get one of the meeting you attended in person, please email us at events@nclug.com. Also, stay until the end of the presentation where we'll be holding a drawing for a $50 gift card for Amazon for one lucky NCLUG member. And without further ado, I'd like to now introduce Derrick Weaver of NCDOT as our presenter. Enjoy.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And looking at the attendance list, it's good to see a lot of familiar names. So feel like I know most of everybody sitting out there listening. So I do want to give you guys an update on integrated project delivery and just kind of where we're at right now. I'm going to cheat a little bit and start off with a presentation that was developed back in March, and that was really before we kind of paused things with IPD, as well as, obviously a lot of other stuff. And this is it's a narrated PowerPoint, and it gives a really good high-level overview of the PDN and the Project Delivery Network and the things that have been done. And that was kind of put together leading up to putting out the PDN. So I want to go ahead and I'm just going to run that PowerPoint, and then at the end I'll switch over and I'll go through a couple of slides myself and talk a little bit further about exactly where we're at today. And then we'll have time for some questions, but we'll go ahead. I'm just going to go ahead and start this PowerPoint.
Thank you for taking time to learn more about the Project Delivery Network. What follows is a brief presentation that summarizes the definition of this PDN, the advancements made over the last year in developing its various component parts, and the opportunities we have for advancement and continuous improvement in more effectively and efficiently delivering our projects. Before we jump into any of this, we'd like to first give some special thanks to Brenda Moore and her team, Derrick Weaver and his team, and all of the NCDOT technical authors for all the work they've done to help develop the PDN and this presentation. Let's start with the big picture first, the network activity diagram. This figure represents all of the high-level activities that need to be accomplished in order to deliver a project. It starts in the upper left-hand corner with the long-range transportation planning process and moves through all of the activities and milestones necessary to get a project to let for construction. We'll dive into what all of this means on subsequent slides, but first, let's take a look at this picture. There are two perspectives to think about when you hear the term project delivery network. The first is this network activity diagram we mentioned in the previous slide. It offers a roadmap to how to deliver projects. It also provides a summary of all the major activities or steps necessary to get to that end goal and the milestones that are needed to navigate. It's technically unit focused, with individual colors to always orient a viewer on where everyone is at in the process. These activities are scalable and flexible based on a project's need or complexity. We know that not every project needs every single activity. Therefore, the PM has the ability to pull the levers that are necessary to add what activities are needed and to put what activities aside that are not needed. Some of the projects will use all of these activities, others will not. Lastly, this project delivery network is interactive. It allows one to jump from the diagram directly into each major activity breakdown to get more information on the who, the what, the when, the where, and the why for each of these major activities. The second perspective is the PDN activity breakdown. This breakdown offers details on what tasks or sub-steps are needed to accomplish the overarching high-level activity, what deliverables are needed to be completed, and the clear roles and responsibilities to complete those deliverables. It provides interactive links to the latest manuals and guidelines by each of the technical units. And it does all of this while balancing and not regurgitating all that would be in these reference links, the technical detail of an activity with the practical application of how to deliver. In defining the network, we identified 6 key goals that we wanted to accomplish, 6 considerations. The first is the integration of people and process, a foundational element of what the project delivery network is meant to serve. The next will be streamlining or accelerating activities. We did this by eliminating, combining, reorienting, moving things forward as needed in discussions with all of the authors. The third was this backbone of the PDN, which is this concept of teamwork, and how that teamwork promotes accountability and infuses collaborations to think beyond silos. Fourth was clarifying expectations for the multiple audiences that will use the PDN. Fifth was efficiency to deliver at all levels of the organization. And sixth was the ability to roll out and use this document to ultimately measure performance for continuous improvement and refinement to the. So this is what we did to realize these goals. We followed a very simple and iterative 4-step process to do this. First, we collected national perspectives. We evaluated best practices and lessons learned from DOTs that have been doing this across the country. Second, we realized that a national perspective was only one perspective we should look at. We also wanted to set the local context. At the end of the day, this document has to be NCDOT's document. To get there, we interviewed many local NCDOT staff at all levels of the organization, in addition to a number of local consultants, in order to define the context for this work. Step 3 involved us identifying and engaging various champions within the DOT to lead the authoring of the various sections. From there, we collected, revised, vetted, reworked all of the content in various different settings and forms, from interviews to one-on-one to large group discussions to interactivity between disciplines. We looked for every single way we could to refine and define what this PDN could be. The results of this effort were fourfold. First, we have a map of the network showing the highest level activities for delivery, noted earlier. Secondly, we provided structure and then the necessary depth to clarifying both the subtasks, roles, and responsibilities engaged in the process. Third, we updated the various references, manuals, guidelines that currently exist now. This has been a side project for much of the team as they continue to develop their documents and will continue to do so in the coming months. And lastly, we defined what needs to be created in the process to advance these deliverables. Now let's look at those goals and how we achieved each one. The first success we saw was that of integration. Integration of technology, whether it be Atlas for future applications or SharePoint in a current application. Integration of structure, moving beyond scoping, environmental, and design being 3 separate parts into being one component part that's necessary to drive all of this to delivery. integration of a defined project schedule that not only maps out major activities, but helps the PM lead the project team through the milestones necessary to complete the project. And lastly, integration of resources, both from a project manager perspective, knowing where the resources need to be for a specific project, as well as a technical resource manager perspective, knowing where his or her leads need to be on all of the projects that the DOT is delivering. Next was success in streamlining and acceleration. We defined the process through 4 discrete stages, each with clear objectives. First, we provided a more robust project initiation stage that involves early visioning to kick off both the NEPA and design process. Second, in alignment defined, we not only set the project footprint, but we streamline the environmental process and accelerate design so much so that the field inspection plans are ready much earlier than they were before. As we transition to plan in hand, the results of this stage are a complete design so that we have a full right-of-way package to more efficiently and effectively transition into the acquisition activities and relocation. All this culminates in a shortened PS&E phase that wraps up the process to get us to a solid package that it has the ability to be led. One question that was often asked by our authors was simply this: who are we writing to? Who's the audience? The answer to that is everyone. While this is certainly a daunting endeavor, it was one of our challenges in writing. We have worked to balance the perspectives of both division staff, central technical units, consultants, and even contractors. The voice of the document is intended to allow anyone an understanding of where they fit and what they need to do to move a project forward. As noted earlier, the backbone of the PDN is a commitment to teamwork. Teamwork with clear lines of accountability, and teamwork with a clear understanding of what recognition means. As such, we've defined teamwork in terms of 4 things: clear definition of what is required and when it's needed, deliverable related; a collaboration led by a PM who is orchestrating the project through discrete milestones as a single point of contact to direct the team; and ultimately where we want to go, the 4th point, performance, with opportunities to give kudos where they're due and also identify improvements in terms of scope, schedule, and budget. Building on all of the success previously discussed, the PDN promotes efficiency. Efficiency in allowing leadership, whether management, a resource lead, or a project manager, to always see where a project's at and how to move it forward. Efficiency in an organization that's now led by a project manager, single point of contact, with clear roles and responsibilities for everybody else. Efficiency in a process that not only promotes collaboration, but eliminates a number of those past handoffs that had occurred in previous delivery methods. And an efficiency in a schedule that's all driven by milestone activities. For each stage, we also identified a number of specific successes. For project initiation, this includes a more robust express design and project scoping report that becomes now a launching off point for stages 2 and beyond. A reduction in rework, as well as an elimination of handoffs that are replaced by collaboration and teamwork. An increased reliability of the data we produce, as well as the transparency we have with agency partners. A proactive incorporation of project need to inform the STIP process. And lastly, an early identification of critical project details like risk, cost, schedule, and scope. For design, stages 2 through 4, we saw success in acceleration of the field inspection plans, now backed by a more complete design and constructability review process. This will get the team talking earlier about design issues, where we'll have more time to react to change. Early decision-making was also key, as we got unit input from roadway, hydraulics, utilities, geotech, traffic, and pavement, just to name a few, earlier in the process, again, so that no one is left behind. We defined expectations so that the team knows what needs to be accomplished and has the accountability to accomplish it. We provided a more efficient review process centered around the 3 major milestones: alignment defined, plan in hand, PS&E. The team now can design in a way that breaks down silos and moves instead to a collective approach to problem solving. And lastly, we have the ability to hit the ground running with more robust express designs, a more complete project scoping report, and the entire team engaged from NTP. But our work is not done. We now transition to next steps, a recognition of both the short and long-term opportunities to further advance the PDN. Initially, we'll lead a rollout and training program aimed at division engagement as well as interactive learning environments to further progress an understanding of what we're trying to accomplish. We'll look for ways to continuously improve through gathering feedback and providing easy access to comment and make recommendations. We'll continue to update our outside references, while also developing letting as another stage in the process, as well as PM guidelines to assist our PMs in delivering projects, and a full discipline-specific QC/QA manual to supplement this document. Lastly, we'll see an opportunity as the program develops to further track or better track performance in terms of scope, schedule, and budget. In all, we are excited to get rolling with the new way to deliver projects. Please let us know of your thoughts or any questions you have in getting us moving in that direction.
All right, so I'm going to transition now to another slideshow that I'll walk you through. All right. So really what I want to do at this point is just kind of jump off of the last slide there that kind of talked about the next steps and where we were headed. And so just give a little more detail to that. The first thing is to publish the PDN, and we're just going to call that version 1.0 because we know that this is not going to be the final version. There's obviously going to be things that change when you're putting out something that's, you know, this massive and encompassing. There's going to be things that we find that, oh, we might need to tweak that or whatever. So that's set right now for early this fall. There's not a lot more to do with it, so it's coming soon. Then there's the training of the PDN, the version 1, that's going to be completed by the late fall. Then the next thing that's getting started is the PM guide, which is short for the project management guidance, and that is under development now, and that will continue through the spring of next year, and then that'll be followed by that PM guide training. So just to give a little bit more detail, the publishing the PDN right now, we're doing the final reviews of the level 3 activities. This was nearly complete when we paused, but we want to go back and just review a few final things. Some of the other items that are going to get incorporated into that we're still working on are the governance of it, really like who's going to kind of own this PDN, where's it going to live at DOT, who's going to be updating it, as well as a kind of a customer service aspect, in the sense of if someone's got a question about the PDN and how it works, or maybe there's a broken link and something's not working right, who can they reach out to get that corrected? So those are aspects that we're working on, and that will be hopefully getting rolled out with the PDN. It may be that some of this is done partially by a consultant to start with as we kind of transition it into the DOT. So obviously there'll be the rollout and then the training. So the training on the PDN, this first version, it's going to start out, I'll say, kind of high level. It's going to be a little more than a concept training, but this training is going to go to the divisions and to the central units, and we're going to focus on, you know, how to use the PDN and how to interact and walk through it, and what the different levels will get you to, and just kind of walk through it. It's not necessarily going to be something that'll walk you through every single box on the PDN, but it's more of a, how do I use this? How is it important to me, and what's its, you know, value? Some of those trainings we've talked about getting recorded so that we can share this information to the consultant community as well. Once that training's done, we know that we will have gotten a lot of feedback from the training, as well as once folks begin to dig into a little bit, they're going to find things that, you know, maybe something's missing, maybe the way that it interacts is not, it's not intuitive. So we're going to go through kind of a lessons learned process where we look at the feedback that we've gotten and go ahead and make updates to the PDN. And maybe that's, you know, 1.1 or version 1.1, whatever. And then from that, we'll do some more detailed training. And that may be that there's some specific areas where we feel like this needs a little more education. Maybe it wasn't covered enough in the initial training, those types of things. And there's also going to be some train the trainer so that we can kind of expand the pool of people that can help others to learn how to use the PDN. And then there's the PM guidance that I mentioned. It's under development. You remember that stands for Project Management Guidance. And it's intended to be, I should say, to have some sort of interactive graphic. It's not going to look like the PDN, but it's going to operate similar to that in the sense of it's going to be an online type format. It's not something that you're going to print out and put on your shelf. This is something that's going to be online and that's going to be interactive. So when you go to a certain place, you can just click and go somewhere else and then come back to that place instead of having to kind of flip through pages to get to what you want to see. We started developing some department champions for helping develop this. We're working with the project management unit and project managers in the divisions. And so this group is really just kind of getting kicked off. Some of the aspects that we're also working on in parallel that we feel like are important and need to get included in the guidance. One is just the finance module. And obviously, you know, reporting, kind of the money side of things has become more and more important. With the audit, it's gained even more importance. So we're already working with a team that includes not only like the DOT fiscal and finance sections, but also the STIP unit, and then some core. There's a core team that has members from the divisions as well as the central units. And so that team we've developed an outline of what's important for a project manager to know about finances, about reporting. It talks about, you know, cost estimates and doing mandate estimates and negotiations, doing the PO, billing, all those kinds of things. And then there's a part of this is going to be about reporting, because what we're finding is that a lot of times different groups are reporting the same information a slightly different way because you can find it on different systems in DOT. So trying to define when we ask for something, report out what we're looking for. And then also there's a group that's looking at the cost estimates. And this group initially kind of stemmed out of an effort that the STIP unit was doing to get better cost estimates. And that's obviously because they're finding that the STIP's blowing up a little bit because we're getting projects that the costs are coming in way higher. Now this is getting better as the prioritization is getting better. So I think it's the 3 and 4s where we're having the most issues with that. But again, that group's working on that. A lot of you will recall back when Debbie Barber was here, there was a chart, kind of a graphic flow chart that was developed to show when do we need to do a project estimate, not only the construction costs, but also right-of-way utilities and kind of at what points. And it also defined who was responsible for doing it based on where we were in the project life cycle. And so that charts kind of get updated. And so we can, again, nail down when do we want a cost estimate. And then also, where do these estimates live? Because right now it's always a little bit hard to find those. Additionally, as the PM guide gets in further development, some of the things that have been being worked on already that will get incorporated is, one is just change management, and that's really referring to if this project scope or budget is getting blown, then what is the process that we need to go through to either notify people about this or to get approval for making these changes. There's also a risk management section where we want to look at what kind of, as we're looking at a project, what are the risks that we need to take into account? Is there something out in the field that's going to potentially cause us to spend more money to build this through this area? Does that mean our cost estimate may go up? Looking at what does it take to actually develop a project and considering the risk. As well, you heard mentioned at the end of the last slides about the QA/QC and developing some policies for who is responsible for the quality assurance and the quality control. So those are some other aspects that will get rolled into the PM guide. And then let's talk about training for that. Again, this is going to get rolled out. Again, that's going to be, in the spring of next year. This will start out with more detailed training. There won't be a real high-level class. It's going to get into the weeds pretty quick. That initial training is really going to be for the internal DOT and embedded staff. And it's focused at the project managers across the state. There will be an opportunity again for reviewing the lessons learned and incorporating that into the future updates for that PM guide. And then finally, I just want to leave you with some resources for where you can find more information. On the Connect site, under projects, you'll find a link to the integrated project delivery. It's probably the best place to get stuff. Another thing that's easy enough to do is on that same site, you can subscribe to the newsletter. The newsletter typically goes out every month. We haven't put one out since we paused, but that will begin. Again, the newsletter will begin to go out again. And so, again, the newsletter generally highlights what's happened in the last month. And the previous newsletters are here online, so you can always go back and kind of pull from something there to look at, what's needed. So that is my high-level overview of IPD and the Project Delivery Network and what's going on now. And with that, I'll be happy to take any questions about what we just talked about.
Thanks, Derrick. Appreciate that. So if you have a question, you can type it in the chat button, or you can raise the hand function, and I'll call on you. So we have one question, Derrick. Where does IPD stand with MS project schedule templates that follow the PDN?
Yeah, so right now there has been some effort about developing an MS project schedule that takes into account IPD. Recently, one of our consultants that we're working with actually took a CE type project and put a MS project schedule together, and then use the IPD process to put the same schedule together. And what we're trying to do with that new schedule is to use the language of the PDN in that schedule so that we are kind of matching things up and knowing exactly what we're talking about. But that is something that's also getting developed, and that's probably going to come out with the PDN, and that's something I think that will get touched on in that initial training.
So y'all have a question? Questions answered. Can you hear me now? I'm sorry. So if anybody has any questions, you can type them in the chat box or raise your hand. Okay, well, I guess you did a great job there. Nobody has any questions, or it might just be a lot to take in.
Right.
I think there's a whole lot of information there and a whole lot of processes.
I see a question. Is that from Derrick Lewis? Says you, meaning Derrick Weaver, or me?
I think that was when people said, "Do you hear me?" So let's see.
Okay.
Most of the time, division keeps changing scopes. Let's see. Rika started saying that.
Yeah, my question is how you IPD is intend to take that in consideration?
Oh, okay. So you're saying changing the scope of the project?
Yes, because
Yeah.
most of the time, you know how it is. This normally the division is changing it after the field inspection or just before the field inspection, and the right-of-way utility is never there on time for the right-of-way to buy.
Right. And so Rika, just so clear, so you're talking about changing the schedule in the sense of, or excuse me, changing the scope in the sense of the project's growing?
Yes.
Yeah. So the big thing there is looking at this change management that we're talking about is how are we going to go about getting that to be approved? And the big thing is, and we've talked about this a lot, is and other states do this, is the budget that you're set and the scope of the project that's set that's what it is. And if you want to expand that, then there's a process to go through. And so that's what we're talking about with trying to have this change management. And right now there is some processes in place for when a scope changes early in the process, and if the cost increases by a certain percentage, or if the scope increases by a certain percentage, then there's a process that's supposed to be followed. That process wasn't necessarily being followed in the past because DOT was in the point of, we've got a surplus of money and this may not be a big deal right now, but right now that's something that's getting reined in a lot, and something that's going to have more process around it. So that's something that we're working on. And with the division engineers being ultimately responsible for all that, I think you're going to begin to see that those types of things are not going to happen as often.
Well, that was the thing was before that it was not going to happen. That's how we had a final field inspection, final design field inspection. Everything was supposed to be set. But I guess it's just never, that is nothing, it's just ever in a stone, I guess.
Right. Well, I do, like I say, with the current climate, with some of the things that are going to get implemented based on the audit, I do think you'll see some changes, and I do think there's going to be more strict staying to what was established.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. And Melanie, I see you had a question about whether or not this applies to new projects or old projects, and this is going to apply to both. We'll just take old projects and put them into the process where they're at. We'll just kind of figure out where that fits best in there, but it's not going to be a thing where we just say, okay, from henceforth you use this process. We're going to on all new projects, we're going to pretty much say, let's begin to incorporate this on all projects and put it in where it makes sense on the ones that are already underway. Zach, you asked, would consultants be trained also? Yes, there is a push to get the DOT staff trained first, but I've definitely been an advocate for getting the consultants trained as well, because you guys are the ones that are really doing a lot of the work for us, and so there is a lot of talk about recording some of the training so that it can then be used and just put out there and made available for the consultants. The project manager training that we're talking about for the PM guide, that will specifically, the consultants that are embedded as project managers will get that first training for sure. And then Brian, you had asked, is the process going to handle merger and non-merger? It will. The way that when you see the PDN, I know it's hard to see on the graphics in this slide. You will see that there is kind of the merger process is in there, and so it will be for both. And Zach, you asked for me to explain further when I say accountability. And I guess, what I'm saying there is, with this kind of the approach that we're going with project managers, the goal is that the project manager is responsible for carrying that project throughout. And so therefore, their role is to manage it through that process. And that also means, manage the budget and the scope. And when I think I use the word accountability, maybe with the division engineers, because the way that things have begun to work and the way that things are with the legislature is the division engineer is the one that's ultimately responsible for the project. And so they're the ones that would be accountable for any sort of projects that are gone over budget or out of scope ultimately. So that means that the NCDOT project manager working with that division engineer is I guess that's where the accountability come from. Obviously, the NCDOT project manager is the one that's leading this effort, and they're responsible, but they're working essentially for the division engineer. So, Rick, I just tried to answer your question there as well. So it is the DOT PM or the embedded PM if that's how we're using the consultant.
Anybody else have a question for Derrick? Okay. Well, Derrick, we appreciate your time and you going through this process with us. And of course, if later on, once you get through some of this training, NCLUG would love to help you host some of that for consultants, or even help host some of that for reviewing once you get something down.
That sounds great. And if anybody's got questions, I think most of you know how to get in touch with me. I'm happy to answer questions. Just shoot me an email or call me, and we can get back to you for sure.
Okay. And just some follow-up notes for everybody that we are giving out PDH credits for today's session. Just make sure that you are registered on our website so that we can align your PE numbers with you your attendance. And so with that, we're also giving away the $50 gift card, and our winner today is Robert Odell. So congratulations, Robert. We'll just reach out to you with some more details about that. We have another event next week, and it'll be back at noon. I know we kind of switched the time on you a little bit today. So we'll be back at noon next Wednesday. And then of course, we're still got some more events planned coming up, but if you have any suggestions of something you want to see or hear about, you can send those to our email at events.nclug.com. So I appreciate everybody joining us today, and thank y'all so much. And thank you, Derrick, for your time and presentation.
Thank you, Patty. I appreciate all your help leading up to this.
Somebody wanted to know if they could get the slide decks published.
Yes.
We
I'll
will
see
be.
if
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
I was just going to say we did record this session, so they can kind of somewhat access it there. But if they want your PDF, your PDFs of your slides, can you share them too?
Yeah, and I'll look to see. I think the one presentation might be on the IPD website, but if not, I think I can get that one there. But I can share it as well.
Okay.
And Patty, I'll just share it with you if you want to put it out
Yes,
there.
and I'll post it on the NCLUG website for folks to go there and find it.